we really have to look at the way our body functions and not just, okay, well, I get on a scale and I look good in my clothes.
Right. And that's what revolutionized. So being in the business for 35 years, when I've been here for 13 years, but what the eye-catching for me, what started this business is what Jay Cook and Eddie Burton came up with. We were two guys that came up with, their physical therapists came up with the functional movement screen that we do. I thought it was a great tool for personal trainers to be able to screen the clients and find out where these issues are, because otherwise we're taking them into the training area and we're going to just add fitness to dysfunction. And so some people are patted back enough to kind of cover it up, but it doesn't mean that they don't have asymmetry, separation. You know, they don't have these issues with their body. And so that's what the screen does. It helps us pull that out, so we know that we want someone to move well before we load. If they don't move well, and that means full joint range of motion, control of the body, coordination, balance, motor control. We have to get that motor control with your body weight first before we can start going into exercise. But a lot of people and trainers, and we've done this in the past where I was before I started this company, is we would just come in and start working out with people. And of course, they're here to lift weights. They're here to get stronger. They're here to get. So that's what we start doing. We just start throwing them on machines and start working them out. And so the industry has come a long way. There are still some organizations that do things that might be more single plane oriented, but when you're on a machine and you're sitting down and you're doing a leg extension, for example, well, the body doesn't have to stabilize. If you have something going on with the hip, it won't show up. If we're trying to lose weight, if we're trying to develop a foundation, metabolic foundation, we have to respect those lower heart rates. So a lot of people don't understand that, but there's science behind it, and it's so important that we start trying to apply that. We're really just applying that here in our most recent year here at Acceleration Training Concept. I've been in the business for 35 years, and I've had this business for 13 years, and we're really just now starting to understand and respect that and say it's okay, And so with you, particularly, beta blockers, that number changes because we have to go by perceived rate of exertion. And so
if you could talk, that was the thing you told me. You have to
be able to talk.
While you're working out, you have to be able to talk. If you're too short of breath, and sometimes I get dizzy if I exert, that's another sign, but that's also a sign you're not breathing.
Right. So usually if we're very stressed, something kind of gives up. Typically it's our breathing. So we find people that hold their breath. That means it's a very stressful exercise for them. Because it's the one thing we can give up and not know. We're not going to stop breathing. We're going to start breathing. But we try to do something and we move through it. We hold our breath when we should be able to do that and breathe naturally or breathe, as we do the exercise.
Which again goes back to meditation, and I have that calming app that I try to take a couple minutes if I'm stressed, and the first thing the Calm app says is breathe. Like, that's so significant. In yoga, keep talking about Adam and his yoga, but that is something that I didn't always think about when I was lifting weights or whatever. You're like, oh, you gotta breathe, you gotta be, but you're doing this with professional athletes as well.
Sure. Our history, a big part of our history is based on working with professional athletes, college athletes, and even high school athletes that are aspiring to be college athletes and things like that. So we do see a lot of general population. So we have we see a lot of people that come through here. So we have a lot of experience, and everybody's different.
Yes.
No two people are the same. And what's interesting to touch base on that part, when we talk about athletes, and we talk about young athletes, kids, we're seeing kids more and more today that have terrible mobility, that can't move well at all. It's because they've been sitting too long. And when we sit and we're in a sitting society, our glutes don't function, so therefore other parts of our legs really take over and don't allow us to move through a full range of motion that the joints designed to move through. And so athletes are one of that classic category that they can be very, very strong. And we look at them, we work with Rice athletes for about 3 years. We've been a while since we've done that. But these are kids that are young kids, 20, 22, 24, young kids, college kids that are huge. I mean, these are like 280 pound, 250, 280-pound kids that are, playing linebacker or tight end. And they're very, very strong and they look fantastic, but they don't move well. And so our whole mission with them, for example, is to make sure they're staying off the end of your reserve list. So we want to that's when we take it. We start with our functional limits training and we identify where their limited patterns are, and then that's what we try to make sure and have their exercise program designed around mobility first before we work on stability and strength.
Okay, so could we use this bench right here? Could you show them where my errors are so they can get an idea?
Sure.
That way?
Exercise and what?
Yeah, so like where you showed where my leg doesn't have the mobility.
Oh yeah, okay.
So can you do that, Adam?
Yeah,
Okay, good. So I want to show this. So you told me that I'm standing wrong. So when I stand like this with my back swayed.
Right. So when we look at that, there's things that we look at, and the main thing is your pelvis. Okay. So we have what's called an anterior pelvis tilt. Most people have it. It's not everybody, but an anterior pelvis tilt. If this was a bucket of water. Right around your waist, you don't want to pour water out of the front of it.
You want to pull it in.
And you also don't want to pour water out of the back of it. So there's a neutral position. There's an anterior tilt, there's a posterior tilt. And so when we sit for long periods of time, we get to where we're relaxed and we have that anterior tilt. Therefore, we stand up. A lot of that's because our hip flexors get short and tight. That pulls on the pelvis, and therefore there's stress on the low back. And when we add exercise to that, then the back starts creeping in, and I feel like pain in my back. A lot of that, and there's different reasons for that, for low back problems, but one particularly is tight hip flexors. And so,
so this here, not stretching out, I figured when you asked me, you said, do you have lower back pain? And I said no, and then I started thinking about it. And I probably have a 2 or 3 or 4 back pain all the time that I've never even noticed because I'm just high functioning. And I'm just pushing through it. Because who has time to worry about lower back pain when you've got something to do?
So if we simplify that, we have to lengthen the front and strengthen the back. So then we start getting into glute function. How important are the glutes? If we sit, our glutes don't have to function. And if we sit for 8, 10 hours a day, when we're at a computer or we're at a school desk or anything, then what happens is that with the glutes don't function, then that sets off a whole chain of things where the hamstrings are overused, your legs can be, your quads can be overused, your hip flexors get short, because the law of reciprocal inhibition is you can't contract both at the same time. You can't contract your bicep and your tricep at the same time. You can only contract one. So it's the same with the hips. If your hips are dominant, we call it tonic, where those muscles are always engaged, and you use those for a lot of things, it doesn't give the back and the glutes a chance to really work and develop and grow. So it's not just glute function that's important, but it's also letting go and lengthening the front end that we really have to pay attention to. So we find that it's common that we see or we hear from people that come in here, they might be doing a lot of glute work, but they're not creating any change. It's because they're really not being able to get their hip into extension and proper hip work, glute work, because the front end doesn't allow that. Anyway, so a lot of times the back is a culprit of what's not working. And a lot of times we look at it that way. So if the back's bothering you, we have to look, okay, what's not working? Is it the core? Is it the tummy? Part of the core? Is it the glutes? So we have, there's 3 parts of what we deem the core. Okay. Years ago, if we talked about someone and we said, what is the core? And we say, oh, it's just a stomach, right? But really the core is 3 parts. The core, when we say the core, and that's what people have to understand, they have to train, and these units, these groups have to work in concert together. And that's going to be the glutes. That's going to be the tummy, so everybody understands. So tummy. And then we have the upper back, which are called plexus musculus. So that's the core. If you took away your arms and your legs, you're left with the core.
So it's,
and that's where your stability, that's where your strength should come from. And your arms and legs should just flow along. But what we do when we don't have good connection with our upper back, we tend to grab stability with our arms. Okay, when we don't have good stability with our hips or our core or tummy, we try to grab stability with our legs. You don't even know where your blood sugar levels are. You need to start by having some understanding of what they do. You need to have some start. How good is our sleep? Because we're all good our sleep, not just do that. And so once we start having that information, then we can start making educated changes, educated decisions on changing how we do things. switched north, I started to look at everything else, realizing how I was just a mess. And so that's when we begin to talk about all these things to people, but it can be overwhelming. It's a step-by-step process, because when you start talking about body function and how to move, you start talking about sleep and the importance of it, and alcohol and diet, it's like, wow, that's just a lot of information. I can't change everything at once. But we need to know that we're heading on a path where we're working on longevity and feeling good when we're 65, 75, and 85.
Right, that we're investing now
Right.
for our future health. And then I would tell myself, well, I don't have enough time to do this. And if we want to have a long, healthy life, we have to create time. And that's, to me, the benefit of COVID is it made us all come to a screeching halt. And then we got to choose what we filled our days with as we came back. Let's talk about, again, I hate Apple Watches because we sell Rolex and all those other fabulous watches, but the 10,000 steps, like that's, again, that goes to blue zones, it goes to movement. There's so much research in living a long, authentic, connected life. It goes back to this that you're talking about, sitting versus standing, taking the stairs versus the elevator. Like, is that a big part of your thought process too?
As I do things and I move, absolutely. I park in the very back of the parking lot when I go to the grocery store, and I park, as far away as I can so I can get some walking in. And even though I stand all day for my job, I'm surprised at how few steps I get in. And so getting 10,000 steps in a day is a really good start, because it's not easy to do that.
It's not.
I mean, and especially if you get 10,000 steps a day, not including going out and running for an hour or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So, right. So if you're just active, that's just being an active life. Right?
Okay.
But what we do now is we're so busy and we have so many things going on, we have to say, oh, let's take an hour to go run. And we really need to be able to get 10,000 steps in our daily life. Almost. So I can get only 5,000 or 6,000 steps a day when I'm just in here working. And you would think, being a trainer on my feet, hour after hour, walking around this whole place and doing things, that it would be really easy for me. But it's not. And so go try to get 10,000 steps. That's moving around a lot.
It is.
And so that's a good start. It's really a good. Now we build from there, right? It's not that we get more steps, but the quality of steps. Maybe it's more active. Instead of just walking around, where our heart rate's maybe a little bit higher and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. We can work ourselves into a pretty poor situation if we don't pay attention today. We can't wait, 20, 30 years, and then all of a sudden, I'm going to start getting it together. Well, by then, there's some things that have been probably fixed in that are hard to make that change.
There's not the time to wait, because things degenerate if we're not actively using them.
Right, exactly.
You use it or lose it. That's silly saying, but it's something to it.
Absolutely. And so that goes for how we hold ourselves. We sit, we stand, and everything we do. How we engage with people. And so there's a lot of body language that's important when we have good posture. It says a lot about ourselves, versus that downtrodden kind of beating up thing, which we see a lot of. It's not people that we see.
And mental health. It's a great, the endorphins that you get from being healthy and taking care of yourself and eating right and sleeping. It's part of the whole package. And specifically during this time of COVID, we are thankfully in Texas coming out from, and we're able to come out. We are still wearing masks here. We just have them off today for our podcast, but you're wearing masks. We're wearing masks in our store. But we miss the connection with people, and going and exercising and walking with people and getting outside now that the weather's better is a great way to also fuel the connection we've lost with so many.
Right. Finding time, time changes this weekend.
Yay! We get to have sun longer and stay out later.
That's right. So there's no excuse now to get our walks and get our exercise in. But yeah, we have to be able to stay active. We can't. We get in this sitting society where we're either we get out of bed and we get dressed and ready for work. We sit in our car, we sit at our desk, we sit at the conference table, we sit on a plane, we sit at, and so all these things promote, we don't realize how much we probably really sit, now, and so we're always encouraging people to try to work on their lifestyle changes to if you're going to be at work for 8 or 10 hours a day, we should have some stand-up portion versus you sitting down there. And so, with a stand-up desk, for example,
Yes.
having that as an option so you can alternate between standing and sitting. And so all of one is not the best and all of the other is not the best. So there's a balance with everything. But awareness is the number one focus. You have to be aware of
You're watching it off the video.
I had a young man in here last week, and he's a young man diagnosed with kyphosis and everything. Because everything is just everything is kind of inward. And so when he came in here, I was expecting him. I was just meeting him for the first time. I was expecting him just to be collapsed on himself. Well, he came in here and he looked pretty good, And I said, "Well, talk to me about it. We've been here for 30 minutes talking." I said, "And you look like you have the, you're doing pretty well. I don't see what everybody's saying." And he goes, "Well, I'm really paying attention when you sit here in front of me."
Because he knows he's with the judge and the jury.
And I said, "Well, I'm proud of you." I said, "You're doing a great job." But that's what it is.
Awareness.
Sometimes when we're working out with some women, sometimes, or my one cue that I give them, I said, "Act like you have your wedding dress on. Act like you have that expensive dress on." Because
Yes.
you're not gonna put that
Act like
dress
you're
on.
carrying a Birkin bag.
Act like you're carrying a Birkin bag. You're not going to carry a Birkin bag like this. I don't want it. So but it's the same thing. We have to present, and there's some showmanship that has to go with that. We have to be aware of that.
So how would people find you and come in here to train with you?
So you can go to our website at accelerationtrainingconcepts.com,
Okay.
and that gives people some information. We're located here in Houston, West Alabama, in Hazard, right next to the chocolate bar. A lot of people know
Oh,
where that
that's
is.
funny. How did I miss that?
Right, or the West Alabama Ice House, or right between the two.
Okay. I would know where that was.
But people can call us and they can talk to us. They can come in and visit with us see the facility, visit with us about what we do. And then if it's right for them at the time, then we surely would like to get them in the schedule, and we would screen them first. Once we screen them, we go from there. And so again, movement's more important. People have a lot of goals. People want to get stronger. People want to lose weight, and all these things. I say these are byproducts of moving better. So
Yes.
again, we have to move well before we say, okay, we're just going to lose weight. We're going to, those are all good factors, but we have to be able to move well in order to be successful with it. So that's why we first look at that before just talking about weight loss and talking about getting stronger.
Yes, and I've shared with so many people, I'm working on writing a TED Talk on authenticity. And one of the biggest factors of living an authentic life to me that I've found in my research is if you can enjoy your journey, enjoy what you're doing because you're connected to your purpose. You can find the workout thing that you like. You can find a way to connect with others while you're doing it, or connect with yourself, or fuel yourself. Then it's not about how you're going to look or getting ready for that class reunion. It's about living life every day authentically to its fullest and finding joy in the midst of it. And this is part of it. I think a huge part, the way you treat your body deeply and greatly affects your ability to enjoy the journey.